Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 476 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have a small crew here this week. Unfortunately, Richard couldn't be here. Ether's sick, so he's out doing the dad stuff today, but I'm joined by Crim. Good morning, Crim. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited, here to take over while my dad is checking in on my, obviously my real dad, checking in on my sibling.
Your little sibling, yeah.
Yes.
So we got some interesting topics for today. So it's been kind of like a slow news week. We're gearing up for spoiler season starting next week for Outlaws at Thunder Junction. But we want to talk a little bit about Crim playing some paper Magic. I know you played a tournament over the weekend, so we wanted to get into that. Want to talk about Modern now that we had bannings last weekend, what the meta looks like. There was an interesting question about what hill in Magic you'd be willing to die on. And then I think our big topic for the day is Arena conspiracy theories. I love Arena conspiracy theories. There's a million of them. I got a pretty big list, and we're going to go through and discuss and hopefully debunk some of these conspiracy theories that are always floating out there about Magic Arena. So that's the overview for today, and then maybe some fish mail at the end. Before we get into it though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit is the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service and send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use their sorted service and pay just a 2% fee. And either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So let's talk some Magic, and let's start with a topic I'm very interested in. Crim, I heard you were playing some paper Magic this weekend. What tournament did you play? What format was it? What did you do this weekend?
Just pretty much went to I played Standard. I've been pretty high on Standard. Been having a lot of fun with that format, and so naturally, it's been a while, but I decided to go and attend one of those Standard showdowns. A Standard showdown over the weekend was pretty fun. But the main problem that I have is, so none of my collection is sorted, right?
I know your pain. Yep.
Yeah. So not a single card is sorted. I had to dig and find a bunch of just Esper cards on my desk. Because it was nearing the time of the Standard Showdown event, right? So I go out to one of these. It's been a while. It's not like an RCQ, you know what I mean? It's just like it's my getting my feet back into the water, of paper, Standard, and all that stuff. So I just threw together a bunch of cards, and I don't even think it was a full Esper control list, because I know that I was just jamming random cards and not respecting aggro whatsoever, right? Because a lot of the cards that I'm required to have to respect aggro are like Elspeth's Smite, cut downs and things like that, right? I'm like, no, you know what? I'm just not gonna run into those decks. So I actually had a pretty darn good time. My deck is, funny enough, heavily catered towards playing against mid-range and other control mirrors. So I've got all the Siphon Insights, because clearly that's where removal should be. And outrageous robberies, right? So I'm playing just good old Esper pure control. I have the time of my life. I'm not going to lie to you. I steamroll my way through my first batch of rounds, right? Final round, I get paired against Boros Convoke.
Ouch.
I had play tested, at a local store, right? A local store, just a little bit of how this would play, because I didn't have any of the cards, and it went about as well in the playtest as I thought it would. If you don't respect aggro, you only have half of the temporary lockdowns that you need. So all I got steamrolled by Boros Convoke, just because I had Siphon Insights, outrageous robberies. when I outrageous robbery and Siphon Insight my opponent, they actually didn't have removal in their Boros Convoke deck for me to use. So yeah, I had a fun time. It just felt good shuffling up paper standard again. I don't think I've played paper standard since 2019. I've mostly played it on Arena, digital qualifiers, stuff like that, sure. But paper standard, it's so nice to see these events firing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go to one today, probably again, right? Like on a this beautiful Monday, the day we're filming, I'm gonna go to another standard event. It's just, yeah.
So are you gearing up to like qualify Crim? Is like sweaty Crim back? Are we gonna win a RCQ and like do the Pro Tour thing? Or are you just gonna play like for fun because you like standard right now?
Both. I think I think I want to get sweaty again. I wanna sweat it out, try to queue for something. But on top of that, I think standard's just so fun right now that I'm actually just having a good time playing. I don't really care what level of play I'm playing at. I don't care what level the tournament's at. I'm just gonna go to locals, like just weekly tournaments. It's just so fun that I don't care how I get my itch, and it's way different, than like playing online. Like I love playing online, don't get me wrong, but it's the same as like playing Commander online, right? Commander online, I can do it, sure. Spell table, all these things, sure. Let's play all of those online variants. But when you play in paper, it's totally different. It feels totally different. And it's just, I don't know, it's really fun. It's just really fun.
How was the turnout? Because I've heard some people, they're like, oh, standard's like kind of booming in my area or coming back in my area. Other people are still like, in my area, I can't even like find a game of standard. No one's playing anymore. How's the turnout at the event you went to and in your area?
I do have the luxury, right, of living in LA.
Yeah.
LA is very popular. Everything fires, right? Like maybe not Legacy. Well, actually, no, I'm pretty sure Legacy fires as well. Like everything had like fires here, and the turnout was actually super solid. Everything felt greater. I think it was like maybe like 30 people, right? Something like that. But for the most part, I think that's still a really good turnout for what is wild, because I think the turnaround of like the way standard was, you know what I mean? Standard was struggling to just even have people show up. Standard was struggling to even just have events. Yeah. I think that it's nice to see RCQ season is standard here. It's standard, all around right now. And it's nice to see all these people come out. And I think this is good for the game. You may not like standard, and that's just fine, right? Like you don't like standard, or maybe you don't like this standard. But the point of the matter is that I think as long as standard is good, that's good for the game overall.
Oh yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that, and I think we are certainly seeing a comeback. I think having the RCQs is a huge deal at just giving people a reason to play standard. I was actually thinking about standard prices a little bit over the weekend, and I did a bit of research, and it was pretty interesting to see if you look at the last 10 years of standard deck prices, and I was looking at like the 10 most played decks in a format is just the easy way to kind of judge it. We actually bottomed out in 2021 with an average deck being $237, which makes a lot of sense, right? That was like kind of pandemic and lockdowns, no place to play paper Magic at all. There was no reason to buy a paper standard deck. And ever since then we've seen, and I know like people don't like deck prices increasing, but I think in this case, it's like kind of a good thing because it's showing that people are once again like putting together standard decks. But we've seen for the last 4 years, actually, 2022, it went up to 300, then last year, 320, this year, 369. It seems like there's actual demand of people to build standard decks and play standard decks again. And I'm with you. I think that's a really good thing for Magic. And standard right now, it seems pretty healthy. Like I still have my issues with it where I still think it's a little bit boring to see the same cards for 3 years in a row. But if you just look at it objectively, the meta's healthy. You have control, you have aggro, you even have some combo decks, these weird like landfall graveyard combo decks with Nissa and Aftermath Analyst. So I feel like we're kind of in that rock, paper, scissors meta. Nothing's like dominating or 40% of the meta like we saw back with Fable in the format. So if you're someone who's like been on the fence or like out of standard for the last couple of years, it seems like a pretty reasonable time to get back into it. And as much as I don't
unless you're playing Shieldred.
unless you're playing Shieldred. And even if you are playing Shieldred, like it's in the format for another year. And as much as I don't like the 3-year rotation thing, it does kind of soften the blow of getting into the format, right? Like this would be the
Yeah.
time normally where I'd be like, all right, standard's good, but rotation's coming in like just a few months. Do you really want to buy in a deck when rotation's going to happen? But I think if you pick and choose wisely, it's going to be a lot easier to like buy a deck that's going to survive rotation just because not as many cards are going to rotate as frequently. So I think it's going to make it a little easier for people to buy into the format now. So definitely would recommend it.
That's kind of what I was like hopeful of, right? Because I know the initial announcement, I was a little bit shocked. Like, wait, why are we extending standard by another year? But then like, yeah, just like you had mentioned, it's softening the blow is nice. And like now when you want to have people who just want to get into the game and learn the game, I actually think as much as I love Commander, I think, okay, so it's weird wishy-washy feeling that I have. Is Commander the format to get somebody started, when it comes into Magic? Because like it's kind of really hard to tell you to sit down, learn not only 100 of your own cards, 300 other cards in your opponent's deck across Magic's time. Whereas I think like if somebody wants to get into Magic and they want to play constructed, right? Not limited or anything like that, I would normally recommend standard, but I couldn't for the longest time because standard was just so bad, right? And now it's actually like really fun, like you had mentioned. There's an archetype in every way, shape, or form running across the board. It's really fun. And speaking of, it's so fun. Like you get to watch, like example, me sit there. I swear, Shuffler is real. The Shuffler truthers are real in real life as well, because I swear I get all my counter spells as one would against the Boros Convoke deck. They have Cavern of Souls, and I'm sitting there with like dissipate, no more lies. I'm just like, dude, I'm so dead. I'm so dead. But it is really fun to see that every deck has fight across the board. I think it's just... it kind of feels unreal, right? Like, and I'm excited to see what this 3-year does, this extension, because now there's just more cards hitting the pool. Like, people are like, one thing that we had talked about in past podcasts is like, will we see cards from Murders at Markov Manor? Will we see cards from LCI, right? Like, actually see play. And we're seeing these cards. Now, of course, again, not these sets aren't going to be like, oh my God, every card from this set is a banger, right? Not all of them can be Jaya yet. Fiery Negotiator, I've been trying to force it. It still sucks. But, but yeah, like I've been excited to see just how many cards and like how packed every deck is from like all the sets across the format. And it's been pretty damn good.
I still feel like Murders is a little floppy. Like, I feel like I don't see that much Murders. I think LCI did really well. We see a lot of LCI cards in Wilds of Eldraine, so I think those two sets, but I think that's fine. Like, some sets are weaker than others, right? And like,
sure,
if you're going to have 12 sets in Standard, they're not all going to be equally represented. Some are going to be stronger and you're going to see lots of those cards. Others are going to be weaker or maybe have a different purpose for flavor. They're more focused on other formats. So I don't know. I think Outlaws at Thunder Junction is probably going to be a strong set. I feel like that's with them doing like Aftermath and just like how much is going into it. I'm expecting a lot out of that one, but we'll see. We'll see in another week or two.
I guess not years, like months. Oh God, how long has Murders been out? I have no idea.
Yeah, about a month, a little over a month now, I think, since it dropped.
You don't think that so example, we're seeing a lot of Murders. You don't think we see a lot of Murders?
Are we?
Okay. Conspiracy Unraveler in all the Reenact the Crime decks. We're seeing Vein Rippers out of like Grixis and like Mardu Vampires and mid-range stuff like that. You're seeing Outrageous Robbery, Deadly Cover-Up.
Wait, do we see Vein Ripper in Standard or like Pioneer stuff?
Well, it's bigger in Standard, but I think it's... I won't lie, it's in part to some of like content creators are putting out like, videos like CGB. I think recently did like an Angels deck, right, on his channel. and now all over the ladder. And again, it could be different, from paper to like, arena and whatnot. All over the
Yeah.
ladder is Boros Angels, right? I'm just seeing Boros Angels left, and I'm like, who did this? I just assume either you or CGB or somebody played the deck. And I'm like, okay, all right, what's going on here? But like, we're seeing cards like that, Deadly Cover Up, right? And
Yeah.
Fugitive Codebreaker, even I even played a little bit of mono green in standard, dude.
I know
And
you I saw that video. You did a video of it not that long ago,
it's
right?
it's kind of weird, dude. Like it's actually not that bad. But an Archdruid's Charm is finding a home. You've got Axebane, you've got Sharp-Eyed Rookie. These are cards that are actually just seeing play throughout the format right now, along with Cryptic Coat.
If Crim says mono green is not that bad, it is truly not that bad because Crim will take any chance to trash on green if he gets it.
I will say that one of the wildest things from the new set for that deck is an uncommon. It's the thing that's big equal to the number of forests you have, the 2-drop.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
dude, that card is sweet, along with Sharp-Eyed Rookie.
I will say we have seen like multiple combo decks kind of emerge in standard because of murders. We have like the Conspiracy Unraveler combo deck with Reenact the Crime, which at this point it really is like a combo deck. The goal is like when I reanimate my thing, I'm gonna like mill you out with Breach the Multiverse this turn. And then we've seen like the Landfall combo decks, which are also very driven by Aftermath Analyst and some of the LCI cards. What's the World Gorger's Rage? Is that the Gruul X spell? Like, so we've seen those decks kind of like evolve. So in that sense, it has added something to the meta that wasn't there before. We had like this mid-range slogfest with like some aggro and control thrown in. And now we have like a pretty mixed meta where we have all those decks. And we also have these weird combo decks on top of it, which has led to a really interesting and fun standard. So yeah, standard's in a good place, but I wanted to ask you about another format. So last week, we got some bannings. Well, really one big banning in Violent Outburst in Modern. So this was targeting actually the top 2 decks in the Modern meta. Number 1 was Crashing Footfalls, which is a Cascade deck. Number 2 most played was actually Living End, which is another Violent Outburst, Cascade into my no mana value spell thing. So we have about a week's worth of data now, mostly from Magic Online, to look at and see what the meta looks like without having this Cascade spell. And I will say, it seems like this banning has really shaken up the meta. Like, so on one hand, the good decks are still the good decks. Tron is still there, Yog's still there, Amulet Titan's still there. Like, a lot of decks that were good before are still good, but we've really seen the Cascade decks knock down a ton. We went from having Rhinos being number 1 and Living End number 2 to Rhinos maybe not even being a top tier deck anymore in Living End, like falling towards like a tier 2 status. So it seems like the banning has actually worked, right? If the goal was to power down these Cascade decks, it seems like it's having the desired impact.
Yeah, I mean, the power level of an instant speed Cascade spell is pretty nuts, right? Like, so if you're keeping Cascade strictly to sorcery speed, much more like manageable, right? You're looking at now, like, you don't get caught off guard by some things and just die at the end of your turn, right? Because they could always go end of turn Cascade spell and then now start of their turn Cascade spell. So it gets pretty rough. So this is interesting. Modern, I don't know. Like, do you feel like now the format what does it feel like now, power level wise? Because I look at these bannings and I see that people are still trying to force that new. It's not new, but it's the old blue-white artifact thing, or it's one blue and white, or is it black and white? The enchantment? No, it's an enchantment that also has Cascade.
Oh, the Cascade Ardent Plea. Yeah.
Ardent Plea.
That's been the most common way for people who are playing the Cascade decks to try to keep them going. So we've seen both Rhinos and Living End. They've kind of just dropped Violent Outburst and splash into white to be able to have Ardent Plea as another 3-mana Cascade spell. Obviously, a huge downgrade, right? You're going from instant speed to sorcery speed, and you're having to add another color into your deck, which is a
Yeah.
little bit awkward. You can do it in Modern. I think that Rhinos actually has fared slightly better with the bannings than Crashing Footfalls has, or than Living End has. So the thing with Rhinos is there was already a Rhinos deck that was built around Leyline of the Guild Pact. It was kind of mashing together like Leyline of the Guild Pact, Cyanide Rocco with the Rhinos plan, and that was already playing white. So we've just seen that deck. If there is one of these Cascade decks that's still kind of thriving, it seems like that's the build, is put up some performances on Magic Online's and challenges and last chance qualifiers. So it's essentially Rhinos with Leyline of the Guild Pact, taking advantage of Ardent Plea. Living End, on the other hand, it seems kind of rough. Like, we've seen a few people try to play it. Its performances haven't been super great. That's the deck that really gets hit by having to add another color. It was really leaning on these like land cyclers from the Lord of the Rings set, and that's like a little bit awkward now. We do see some Teferis in there to try to like be able to like still interact and protect your stuff during your combo turn, which is something you used to be able to do much better with Force Negation when you were comboing at instant speed. But I think that Rhinos, it's probably going to stick around. Like, adding 10 power to the battlefield is still a really powerful effect. Living End, it seems like that one took the brunt of it. The meta overall, it's still Modern, right? Like, it's still a very fast format. If you look at the top tier decks in the meta, they're really all trying to win like turn 3 or turn 4. You got like Goryo's Vengeance Reanimator is actually the new top deck in the meta now, and that's just trying to like
in a while.
Yeah, that one's really in just like the last month has really ticked up. And now that you don't have to deal with Rhinos, I guess it's just kind of taking the throne at the top of the meta. But really all you're trying to do is like discard an Atraxa and Goryo's Vengeance, and then you're playing like Ephemerate, so you can find your Ephemerate with your Atraxa and blink it to keep it around forever so it doesn't go away with Goryo's Vengeance. So that deck's kind of emerged as the best deck.
Is this scam? Like, yeah. Is this another, is it now Esper scam?
I swear that literally every deck in Modern is scam. Like Goryo's Vengeance, in their own way. Like Domain Zoo #2 is like scamming with Leyline of the Guild Pack and Draco. Tron scams by turn 3 Karn. Yawgmoth just combos off. Amulet Titan just plays a Primeval Titan. So yeah, that's kind of where the meta's at. It's still very fast. I think these bannings have improved it, but it still looks a lot like Modern.
There's one recent development that I really like in Modern. I saw that Demir Mill won a tournament, right? Like about a couple weeks back. And now I'm seeing Mill is like sitting maybe somewhere like just slightly tier 2, right? Maybe. Let's call it that. Why? How is this good now? Why is this good now? I don't know. I don't like, I half ask because I'm like, okay, any meta where that Demir Mill deck is good, I immediately am listening. Right, we're immediately listening.
So I think part of it is they just keep printing upgraded mill spells, which has really helped in just the last couple of years, getting like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Fractured Sanity, even getting like Drown in the Lock back in Eldraine was like a huge deal for the deck. The other thing that I think is helping it right now in the current meta, which is kind of funny, but at the top of the meta where you're just talking about Goryo's Vengeance Reanimator being like the current most played deck since the bannings, also Yawgmoth combo is kind of a graveyard-based combo deck. In the mill decks, the ones that are doing best are often playing like 4 Extirpates and 4 Surgical Extractions in the main deck. So yeah, you can mill them out, but you also just kind of hose some of the top decks in the meta by exiling their combo piece, exiling their reanimation target. So I think that's part of why mill is like actually oddly well positioned in Modern right now.
Do you just concede to Zoo?
Zoo, yeah, I don't know what you do about Zoo. I can't imagine you're fast enough to beat Zoo with any consistency. But yeah, that seems like a very bad matchup. I even don't know, like Amulet Titan doesn't seem that great, but I don't know. Maybe
you could squeak by against Amulets, because the thing is, I've noticed one thing is they've actually dropped Tasha's Hideous Laughter right now because you look at all the way. It's probably, again, the effect of where Modern design is going towards. Like, we're looking at 6 mana Leyline what is it? Leyline? Oh god, I forget.
Leyline binding, yeah. Leyline
Leyline
binding
binding, right?
definitely
Leyline
hurts.
binding. You've got Dracos. You've got all these things, right? That are 12 mana, right? Or 6 mana. So I'm now seeing the dropping of Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Now you're just going a full 4, like, Fractured Sanities.
I
Fractured Sanity is just better, which is funny. And, let's not lie here. It's probably synergizes way better with, 8 extirpates, effects, right? Or surgical extraction effects that the
Yep.
cards hit the yard as opposed to being exiled. So it's just wild to me because, where Modern was, right? Tasha's Hideous Laughter hits pretty much like a chunk of your deck, like
Yeah.
a third of your deck. Now, because of how the mana costs of things are, it may get cleared after 5 cards.
That actually, yeah, I played this Leyline deck in Modern for my video last Friday and played against the mill deck, and they Tasha Hideous Laughter for 4. I'd never seen a worse Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense why some people are cutting this card. Interestingly, we've seen some builds bringing Trapmaker Snare back in, which is a card I haven't seen in a long time, but it's just like 2 mana, search for a trap, which in the deck is Archive Trap. So it's essentially just 2 more copies of Archive Trap that you can get early in the game, which that makes a lot of sense too. It looks like a cool build. It kind of makes me want to play a mill deck now because I do like extirpating and surgically extracting people's stuff. And I guess that's how you can beat those combo decks, right? You just build the Primeval Titan and then you exile it, and then it's really hard for Amulet Titan to actually do anything. So yeah, Modern I think is in a, maybe Modern and Standard are both in decent places at the same time, which is kind of wild. It's been like a long time since I felt like both of those formats were in relatively healthy places.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why it's shocking me. Again, I see Mill. I see Mill somewhere near the top tier. I am definitely intrigued.
Today's show is brought to you by Shopify. We've been using Shopify for years to run our merch store, MTGGoldfishMerch.com. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to our first real-life store stage, all the way to the data million order stage. Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soaps or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What's great about Shopify is it works no matter how big you are. From selling your first tokens to handling your huge ebb and flow playmat campaign, everything was a breeze due to Shopify. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is a global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow on Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/goldfish. All lowercase letters. Go to shopify.com/goldfish now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/goldfish. All right, so all right, Crim, I got a good topic for you. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it worked out that this is actually the week for us to do it. And I want to talk a little bit about Arena, Magic Arena, and the conspiracy theories around Magic Arena. So Magic players, they love their conspiracy theories. They love to complain about things, talk about their bad beats. There's a pretty massive list. I was going around through the internets, through Twitter, through some videos people have posted, and I was just trying to find all the conspiracy theories about Magic Arena possible. And I wanted to give you some of these theories, and I thought we could maybe discuss and maybe for some of them even debunk them, because some of them are pretty far out there. Some of them actually are seem somewhat realistic, potentially. So conspiracy theory number 1. I want your take on this one, Crim. You get bad draws or bad opening hands if you win too much. Essentially, I guess the theory is that WotC doesn't want you to win that much. So if you start to win too much, they knock you down by messing with your draws. My question for this is, why? What would their motivation be? Why? How would that benefit WotC in some way to be hey, you won 4 in a row, we're gonna mana screw you this game or something, even if they did have the technology to do that? Why?
don't think that's real. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. What is the benefit of that, right? I mean, maybe what you're experiencing is you go on a run and then yeah, eventually variance hits you, right?
Yep.
Like variance will hit you eventually. Or what about maybe if not that, then like in every game, I could at 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 best, if I were to give any benefit of like of the doubt to that kind of claim, it's that maybe you win so much that your elo goes higher, so then you just get paired against better players.
That was the first thing I thought, because we know they have like the hidden MMR or something. Like you have your rank, but there's also like a
Yeah.
hidden rank system that helps determine like the matchups and so forth. That was my first thought, is maybe this isn't some conspiracy, but maybe if you win like 10 matches in a row, you just end up getting bumped up against tougher opponents who then are you're more likely to lose against because they're just better at playing Magic. So I think that could be possible. Like that's not really some sketchy conspiracy though. That's just like kind of
Yeah.
how rankings work in video games. So yeah, that one has never really made sense to me. I also think like I don't know. We remember our bad stuff more than our good stuff. Like I think when you get
Yeah.
that all land hand or no land hand and you mulligan to 4, that's the game that's going to stick in your head at the end of your play session, and not the 5 other games where you just ran normally and played a normal game of Magic. So I think maybe we tend to remember the bad games more than the good games. Ooh, what about this one, Crim? This is a good one. The Thoughtseize bug. This is an infamous one. This one goes all the way back to Magic Online, where this used to be a conspiracy theory there. Also kind of related to the scry bug. But basically the idea is when you Thoughtseize your opponent and take a card, they're somehow more likely to draw another copy of the same card that you just Thoughtseized. The scry bug is the same, except when you scry a card to the bottom, you're more likely to draw that same card off the top of your deck.
Yeah.
Could there be any truth to this?
No, right? Like because technically I've done that in real life. So,
Yeah.
right, like I've been thought seized in real life, and then I drew the copy right there. So it's like I don't know. That's just again, why did they thought seize you? Because it's the best card in your deck, right? Or in your hand. So then if that's the best card in your hand, you probably want to see that card quite often, right? So you probably play a full play set of those. So yeah, maybe you get like lucky, unlucky to the person casting Thoughtseize every now and then. I mean, that's why the saying goes, Thoughtseize doesn't stop top decks, right?
Yep.
And all that goes with any discard spell.
So this one I actually tried to math out a little bit, and I think that this is probably a combination of like vividness bias, maybe, where you like remember these these weird things that happen more than the normal things, and also just like not understanding the odds of that happening. So the way I would calculated this, let's say you Thoughtseize your opponent and take something they're playing a playset of. So there's 3 more copies of that card in their deck. There's about like a 6-ish% chance, depending on like exactly how many cards are left in their deck, but there's somewhere around like a 6% chance that their draw will be one of the other 3 copies of that card, which isn't a high number. But if you're playing 4 Thoughtseizes and playing like that regularly, that's going to happen fairly often. That's 1 out of every like a little more than 20 Thoughtseizes, 19 Thoughtseizes. So it's not like some astronomical odds that your opponent's going to draw the same card you just Thoughtseized. I think that's just like gonna happen sometimes mathematically. That's just like how math works in this case. And then I think we just remember those bad beats, because when you Thoughtseize
Yeah.
the treasure cruise and they draw the treasure cruise and like draw 3 cards, you're just like, oh, come on, Magic. Like seriously, come on. You remember that. You don't remember the time where they top deck a land and you went on to win though. Like that game doesn't stick in your head, or that Thoughtseize doesn't stick in your head.
Of course not. Everything was as planned, right? So yes, very good.
All right, what about this one? This is another one. I don't understand if this was possible, why Wizards' motivation would be for this. But the theory is, when you're 1 win away from ranking up, you need that 1 win to get to platinum or gold or mythic. You get bad luck and your opponents run perfectly, and then WotC makes it hard for you to get that last win to get that 1 rank that you need. Why? Why does Wizards not want people to be mythic or platinum or something? Like, well, what would WotC's like? This is the company that
There's
can
an
barely
employee.
make auto tapper work. They tap my creature lands to themselves with auto tapper. I can't imagine they're sitting there being like, Seth's about to get mythic. Let's give him some extra lands in this draw so he gets flooded.
It's very easy though, because there's somebody that just sits at the office and just monitors. They have every game pulled up. They have 32
Yeah.
different monitors, and they say, here it is. I caught this screen A2 right over here. It's about a mythic.
About to get mythic. Get them.
Hit the switch. Hit the red button. Hit the big red button. I'm like no, that's nonsense, right? Like, as someone who speaks in only nonsense, that's too much nonsense. Like,
Yeah. That one's so over the top. I just like, I think that's another case where if you're someone who plays enough Arena to rank up to Mythic or the higher levels, that means you've played a lot of games of Arena, and not all those games are going to be memorable, but when you're like one win away from hitting Mythic, that's like the biggest game you play of the month or whatever, that's what you're going to remember, right? If you end up getting Mana Screwed or Mana Flooded in that game, it's going to stick in your head and you're going to like have a story to tell about it. So I think it's just how our memories work with it, but I can't see any motivation from Wizards' side to do this, especially since in theory, like, you're probably playing someone else, hopefully who's like relatively equal rank for you. So if they're like screwing you over, they're helping someone else get to Mythic. So it will even out in the long run anyway, like with a whole bunch of people playing. So yeah, I don't really understand why
you're
that would
actually
even be a
taking
thing.
one for the team.
Yeah, you're helping
Right?
us.
You're helping the other person get to Mythic.
All right, let's do this one, because this one I think actually, at least with this one, I can see why Wizards would do this. Not that they do this, but the theory is you get better matchups when you spend money in the store. So you spend some money, you build a new deck with, the packs you just cracked, you're going to get good matchups for a few games. That's also related. When you build a new deck, it gives you easier opponents for your first like 5-ish matches to make your deck seem better than it is, and encourages you to like buy more cards and build more new decks, because you're like, wow, I'm the greatest brewer ever. I'm crushing everyone with my, brew. So I'll build more decks and buy more cards.
First off, the first thing that you brought up, if you spend more money in the store, you get better matchups and draws or whatever. We just call that Arena Premium, right? We just call it Arena Premium. If you spend money, then you've renewed your Arena Premium membership. Now, if that were true, crazy if true, if that were true, you and I and all of Goldfish,
we never lose.
We should never lose a game, because we make content, right? So we spend money on Arena, a lot of money. You spend a lot of money when you open packs and you are given gems in place of the rares, right? So if this was true, you and I should be undefeated, Mythic instantly every day. Like, just like there are no losses.
Especially you, Crim, because you have all the like fancy like card styles and stuff too, right? So you're like the whaliest of whales when it comes to Arena. You should definitely be in the
I have
never
the
lose
pet
tier.
Beach ball for some odd reason, right? So like, you know what I mean? Like, I have so many pets and cosmetics that I don't even know how they got into my account. So like, if that were true, I should be undefeated, Mythic 1, easy. That's not true, by the way.
It's not. It is. Yeah, I also don't believe this is true. I could see, at least in this case, some of these we've talked about, it's like, I don't see why Wizards would even do this, how they would benefit from doing this. At least this conspiracy theory, I could see why. Like, we could make more money thing. So I could see why someone would think that a company would have a motivation to do that, at least. But I just really don't think that Wizards, for one, would have the time and ability to do something like that.
The same company that has the auto tapper, tap your land, like you had mentioned, is out here doing this. Oh,
yeah, that's like some supervillain stuff for Wizards technology. Yeah, I don't think they're at that level. The other thing is, like, if this was true and it came out, wouldn't that just destroy a game? Like, I imagine that's like, isn't that the worst headline you could ever have for your game? Like, oh, people who are paying money are like somehow getting this like skewed matchup advantage, or the shuffler treats you better when you buy stuff from the store. Like, so I don't think like the risk would be worth it. Like, so even if they could do it, which I don't think they could, I don't think they would do it, because just like the risk isn't worth destroying your whole game over something as silly as that. All right. Here's one that's kind of related and interesting. And this one actually makes me think that this one maybe could be possible.
Hold on. What about the brew one, though?
Wait, the brew one. What's the
Yeah,
brew
the
one?
one where if you brew a new deck, you just talked about.
Oh,
Like
so
we technically didn't touch up on that, so we should
I
answer
will
that too.
say, I feel like in my brain, I feel like when I build a new deck, I do better with it than I should in my first few games. I don't, have you ever seen that? I don't believe the conspiracy theory because I think it's probably some bias in my head that's just like remembering things in a weird way. But I will say when I like first build a deck, I feel like maybe I do better in my first few games and then I just like lose. And I'm like, all right, on to the next deck. So I could see that happening to someone and them like making a conspiracy theory out of it. But I'm pretty sure it's just like natural variance. And sometimes you run well with a new deck or whatever, hit the right matchup. But what do you think about that one, Crim?
I mean, if you play, I think that there's an element right to brewing, and that gives you an advantage, and it's that people don't know what the hell you're doing.
It's also true.
Like as someone who plays a control deck that relies on knowing what your deck does, what are the key points, what's making your deck tick? If you're playing a brew deck, you're just going to be able to, you might just steal wins because some people will have no freaking clue what you're doing. Oh, I countered a random like piece that isn't even like, important to your deck. On top of that, I know for a fact, and unless, again, there's just somebody that's sitting at WotC, staring at my games and trying to make me lose so this doesn't look fishy, I take brews out all the time. And, you see me build, if you've tuned into the streams, you've seen me build them on stream, right? And then try to play test before I film any of the content for the week, right? I just like play test these decks out. All right, do they work? And people just watch me get dumpstered for like an hour until I tune stuff to the right point.
I think you made a really good point. I played this, and this is like the most extreme example, but I played this Laelia historic brawl deck with like 94 lands in it for a video a couple weeks ago. And that deck won a ridiculous amount. I went like 12-3 or something with that deck. The deck is incredibly easy to disrupt. All you got to do is leave up any removal spell and kill the Laelia once, and the whole deck like cannot win. But no one knew they had to do that because they didn't know what the deck was. So there were many opponents that, had they known what I was doing and seen the deck before, 100% would have won the match. All they would have done is left up their removal spell. They just didn't know they had to because they had no idea what I was up to and didn't know that like if I just cast Laelia and put a Cascade spell on, I'm going to win the game on the spot. So I think that's one of those examples, right, of how brewing and playing a brew can have that advantage. So maybe that's part of it, is when you first start playing a new deck, especially if no one knows what it does, maybe you do better with it because you just have this information advantage. Your opponents don't know how to stop it, don't know what your combo is, don't know when they need to leave up their interaction and when they can tap out for something. So I think that kind of makes sense. And then once people start to know, oh, here's how the combo works, then they play in a way that can stop the combo and your win rate drops. So I think that actually, that seems like a pretty good explanation to me, really. All right, let's how about this one? So this one is a little bit related. In this one, I could, well, I don't know. The theory is Arena skews the odds of hitting certain combos that they don't want you to play. And this was specifically in reference to Tibalt's trickery combos during the height of its popularity. So the thinking was basically everyone hated Tibalt's trickery. So WotC behind the scenes, like, fiddle with the numbers a little bit. So when you did your trickery, you're more likely to hit one of your fizzles and hit another ornithopter or whatever than hit your big bomb and win the game, to try to discourage people from playing the combo that they didn't really want people to be playing anyway.
Again. Why? Right? Like, all the best thing about these conspiracy theories is just like, why? like why? Why would they care, right? If they sat down, had somebody program the wildest string of code or some way to make it so that Arena does this, why would they spend more time and invest more hours into it rather than just, hey, we're gonna ban it?
And with trickery, they did ban it pretty quickly too. They ban, like, it seems so much easier just to ban the card and be done with it than to try to like program in some hack to work around to lower the odds of it working. It's like hard mode. That is just
fully like solve the problem, right? Like,
no.
It's like, again, why, right? Like, there's just so much why.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this one would probably be theoretically possible. I just don't know. It seems just like the hardest way to go around solving the problem, when you can ban the card, or in some formats you can just errata the card or rebalance the card. So I don't know why you'd spend, weeks programming things when you could just do one really easy action to take care of the whole problem. What about this one, Crim? players know how to hack Arena. For example, they can hack it so they can like see your hand, like your opponent can see your hand somehow and knows specifically how to play because they know everything in your hand. I will say I've never seen evidence of people being able to like hack and see your hand, but there have been a couple of cases of someone who's like posted videos or articles. There's one like 6 months or maybe a year ago now about someone who figured out how to hack the code of Arena to like force their opponent to concede in the middle of the game and like actually posted all the code of it. And I believe stuff like that is true, but I imagine that's like a bug. I don't think it's like a conspiracy. I think it's like a flaw with the code that someone figured out and then it gets fixed afterwards. But what do you think? Are there hacks in Arena? Are our opponents looking at our hands, Crim?
I mean, well, first off, the one thing here is like, yeah, what you had mentioned, I think, yeah, that's supposedly true, right? Like where if they figured out how to make the game essentially blow up, right?
Yeah.
Like, but hacking otherwise, like even if they're looking at your hand, like if that, again, that's just like another one of those things where I don't know how much that does, right? I mean, technically, both of us as streamers, we've actually, that's a self-induced hack where we just show our hands because you can just stream snipe, right? But like the one thing about that hack is that even like worth all the hours you would have to put into it, right? Like I do believe hacking probably could exist because that happens across the board across multiple different video games. Right?
Yeah.
Now, they would have to hack to a level to where they get to just essentially tutor their next draw.
Yeah.
That's where it would start mattering, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like my hand being revealed has never mattered to me. So I guess I just don't care, right? Because it's like, oh, all right. Well, I mean, I've always I've openly told people if you want to look at my hand while we play and I'm streaming, just sub to the channel. I don't care. You can snipe me as much as you want. Yeah,
that's a viewer. Yeah,
sub. Yeah, like, I'll straight up read you my cards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and make sure you got the notes.
I'll say on this one, I think like you said, pretty much any game is probably hackable for someone who like knows what they're doing and is good at that stuff and is going to put enough time into it. I'm not sure what the motivation would be on Arena though. Like it seems so hard to profit off of that, right? Like, what do you get out of spending months or years of your time going through code to try to come up with some hack? Like, your rank is like
Mythic
or something.
You get to queue for some of the event because, like, obviously, if you had it, right? If you had this hack, I assume the hacker wouldn't openly tell people they have the hack, right?
But then wouldn't you eventually have to like play a event where you would get caught or something if you were actually going to try to seriously profit off of hacking that way?
Yeah.
So it seems like it could get you to a point of like, oh, I'm high on the ladder or whatever, I qualify for something. But sooner or later, it's going to fall apart because you're going to have to go play a paper pro tour because you qualified for it. Or you're going to do some championship where people are like actually watching you play live on stream somewhere, like the Mythic Invitational or something. And then it's all going to fall apart because you're not going to be able to hack your way through that, right?
I mean, I assume if they're willing to hack their way to just get to the Pro Tour, that they would probably also try to sleight of hand you while you play them in real life. But, you know, like...
That's probably true.
Right? Like... But will it work? I doubt it.
All right, we got a few more here. This one's another money one. So Arena makes you lose more in draft if you enter with a draft token, like you get from whatever the monthly reward things is, or if you pay with gold compared to playing with gems. So basically, if you pay with real money, they're going to give you better cards, better running. But if you pay with gold or fake money, Wizard's going to get you because they don't want you to, you can't do well in draft with a draft token.
Another Arena premium situation.
Another Arena, yes, more Arena premium.
This is... Again, do you know how hard that would be? How we don't even have Pioneer fully, right? We don't even have.
Every day I wake up, I'm like thankful that Arena opens. Like I'm not stuck on that loading screen for the whole day and reinstalling the client. Like that's a win. That's a win when I get to play Magic on Arena and it's functional.
Yeah.
There's no way. They're like programming some. Did they use a draft token to enter this draft? Oh no rares for you. Yeah, we're gonna make sure you open all lands.
We're talking about the client that updates, and then usually when a new patch or a new set comes out and then blows up after the update, right? Like so.
Oh, there's just no way.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they're just out there nefariously plotting like that, right? Like there's just no. No, it's
Ooh,
nonsense.
this one applies to you, Crim, because I've had people ask me about why you always play 61 cards or often play 61 cards in your decks in videos. So the theory is this, and I thought maybe Crim is a believer in this conspiracy theory. So the theory is that the shuffler's rigged, but if you play 61 cards, it throws off the rigging and it throws off its math, and then it runs properly. So you play that one extra card and the rigging does no longer apply to you. So is that the reason you sometimes play 61?
The hand smoother is at work, dude. It's at work. Okay, let me put my tinfoil hat on. Okay, is that the answer you want? Because I'll give you that answer. In reality, I play 61 just because everybody asks, "Why do you play 61?"
It's a good conversation starter. Yeah, it's a conversation piece.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, why do you play 61? Well, I got you to ask, didn't I? So, and you know what? We could even say I'm pre-boarded for mill. So, so the one thing I'm pushing now is the 61, right?
Yeah.
But we're climbing. We're gonna go to 62.
We're going to 62.
I mean, we have somebody out there went to a tournament and also is a believer in the hand smoother in real life. So that's why they did the 68 card land combo, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Why did nobody ask them about 68 cards? You see?
So I will say there probably is like a little kernel of truth. Not that the conspiracy is real, but I think how people start thinking this way is because of the hand smoother in best of one. So I think it is true in best of one. We know it's true because they've said in best of one, like your opening hand's not fully random. They like draw multiple hands and try to give you one where the amount of lands you have matches the ratio in your deck or whatever. And in that context, maybe playing an extra land actually shifts the math in some, it would shift the math in some way, but it only gets a conspiracy. Like that's just Wizards is upfront about it. This is how best of one works. We try to make sure people get functional hands. If you don't like it, play best of three. So maybe some people like hear that stuff and they just run wild with it and it ends up being this huge conspiracy when really it's not. It's just kind of this straightforward thing to make best of one a little bit more playable for whatever people getting into the game or whatever. So I think
but isn't it supposedly only in unranked that the hand smoother works?
Oh, is it really? I was thinking it was all best of one, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is only unranked best of one.
Yeah, unranked best of one is where I believe the hand smoother and matchup pairings would happen, right? Because like they do give you pairings where like the power level of your deck, right?
Yep.
If it's full of jank, they're gonna probably match you up with somebody else that's full of jank. But this is all in the casual queues, not in the ranked queues.
Right. And I think that makes sense for the casual queues. Why wouldn't, like, if you're playing the casual queues, wouldn't you want to play someone whose deck is roughly matched with yours and not like, I'm playing tier Esper midrange and you're playing some janky thing with your new player experience cards. Like, it seems like it's better in unranked that way. But I think it's those little things that like people just run wild with and turn into this big conspiracy theory when actually it's just like an upfront conscious choice to make the game better. These next two are two. If there are any on this list, I might believe it would be these two. So the next one is Wizards intentionally prints OP alchemy cards, knowing that they'll have to nerf them to suck wild cards out of the player base. What do you think, Crim?
I could see half of that. Like half of like some of that. Like the suck the wild cards out of you thing. I don't know if that's the game plan. I do think that they will just print the most busted thing they can because it's digital. They can easily, or well, I guess I say easily, but months, after a couple of months, 6 months or so, they can just errata it, right? But like, I do think that they do run a little more wild with alchemy cards because they can just patch it up in a simple update.
That's basically where I'm at. Like, I think this does happen, but I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's more like we have the flexibility to rebalance these cards, which we don't in paper. So we don't have to worry quite as much about getting 100% right the first time. We can kind of just like put it out there and see how it goes. And then if we need to, we can fix it later. I mean, honestly, all of alchemy is probably to drain wild cards out of the player base. So maybe like the fact that the format even exists is like a financial thing. But that's how I kind of view this. I think it is true that if the cards couldn't be rebalanced, they would probably be lower powered, some of the highest powered alchemy cards. But because you can rebalance them, there's just not a reason to worry about it too much. You might as well see how it plays, because it's really hard to judge power level. Watch any of my spoiler videos or Crim talking about cards during spoiler season. Like, WotC's in that same position. It's really difficult to judge the power level of a card when you haven't got to play a million games with it. And WotC like has to do the same thing when they're printing the cards. So I think it kind of happens that alchemy cards are overpowered, but I don't really think it's like a conspiracy theory specifically to like get wild cards out of people. What about this one, Crim? Wizards published bad deck lists on Magic.gg to try to make the meta look more diverse than it really is. So I have a whole series based on this, the Meme or Dream series, where we take deck lists that Wizards publishes on Magic.gg and try to like put them to the test and see if they actually could have got 6 wins in a row or whatever. I will say I'm like 99% sure I know what happened here. And that is, I think it was just bugged, because we definitely have gotten some deck lists that were like literally all basic lands. And they ended up getting published on the page that says this got 6 wins in a row, or you know, platinum rank or better. There's no, like, it's not possible. There's no way that an all basic land deck actually won 6 times in a row. There also were some really weird like decks with no sideboards and really weird janky decks. My guess is there's 2 possibilities. The most likely one is there was just a bug with them publishing deck lists, and it was pulling lists that it shouldn't have pulled, because it's gotten much better in like the last year. When they first launched this, the decks were like really hit or miss, but now if you look at the decks, they're pretty much all reasonable enough looking that I'm like, all right, I could probably get a few wins in a row. So I think that's the most likely thing, is it was just some sort of bug with how they were pulling deck lists. But yeah, so I don't know. What do you think, Crim? Like, is there a conspiracy here, or a bug, or none of the above?
I mean, I think the only thing that would lean into that, it's like, well, why does Wizards care about, like websites showing like metadata and percentages and stuff like that, but like that's about as much that I think could feed into that. I don't know if I actually think that, like, yeah, it's intentional. I do think that usually anything that happens on their end, it's so.
What's that saying? Don't ascribe to malice what could be incompetence or something like that. That's just like WotC, right. Basically. Yeah. Like I always assume, well, they're probably just messed it up and they're not actually being malicious here.
Like, but this could also be the funniest, like, they are so good at going under the radar. They're like, oh, I had no idea.
Oh, oops. I mean, I feel like the motivation wouldn't be to make the meta look more diverse. If there was going to be a motivation here, I would say, if I was a conspiracy theorist running WotC, I would try to publish lists that like overrepresented cards from like the newest set that I'm trying to sell, to like encourage people to buy those cards. So I don't even think it makes sense. Like, what does WotC really care about making the meta look more diverse? I know we complain about it on Twitter and so forth and on Reddit. Like, we like to complain about it, but in the grand scheme of things, like Esper being 15% or 10% of the meta, I don't think it actually matters in like the big picture or to WotC. So I don't know if that's a motivation enough for them to try to do it, just to like make the meta look better.
Yeah.
All right, last one. And this one is interesting because it's actually a carryover from a paper Magic conspiracy theory, but essentially it's hardest to open popular cards. It's harder to open popular cards from packs than unpopular ones. The best rares and mythics somehow have lower drop rates than like the bad rares and mythics. So if you open a pack, your odds of getting a Shieldred is lower than getting whatever the jank mythic from the same set is. You're more likely to get the bad mythic. And I remember in paper, I want to say it was like Dismember. Do you remember? Like there was this big controversy about Push. Like Fatal Push. Yeah, mythic uncommons, where like Fatal Push is actually way scarcer than it's supposed to be, and it's like actually at the rate of a mythic, and there were videos about it in this huge thing. I'm pretty sure that was not true either, but this basically sounds like the same conspiracy theory to me. Like WotC somehow knows the best cards and makes it harder to open them. Any chance, Crim?
Of the conspiracy theories, right? Of the conspiracy theories, if I had to pick one of these, it probably this one, I think, is the one that I'd understand more, right? Because it's not so much a conspiracy, but I think there is a thing to it, right? Where the print sheet, the way it's cut, right, and into packs, and where the card sits, right? Because so right now we just brought up Fatal Push.
Yep.
Murders at Markov or Karlov Manor, I think that's true of No More Lies. So
Ooh.
I got I got okay, so WotC sent some of the ambassadors, right?
Yeah.
Some product. So I think we got a collector's booster, a like the play boosters, right? And like boxes. And then on top of that, I bought a box, right, of just regular play boosters. In those 3 boxes, I have opened 1 No More Lies.
Wow. But at the
So
same time, couldn't that just be variance?
it
Like,
could be.
that's always the hard thing, because that's always the argument I hear people use for this is like, oh, I opened 5 boxes and only got 2 of these or 1 of these. And like that could be pointing to something, but it also could be like you just kind of ran bad with your boxes. So it's
Yeah.
so hard to like actually gather the data on this. You'd have to be, I'd like to
There's
see
no data. Like, I
SCG's
don't think on
data.
that.
Like, or if you had like a big store though that opens like hundreds
Yeah.
of boxes, like maybe you could get enough data to really figure it out from there. I will say it doesn't really apply to Arena, right? Like this is more of a
No.
paper conspiracy theory, because
Yeah.
what I think what you're saying is right about like the print runs and sheets and how cards are printed could have an impact on that, but none of that actually applies to Arena. I imagine there's no printing sheets on Arena. It just randomly
Yeah.
generates a card at the rate it's supposed to. So I guess in theory they could like fiddle with the numbers to make Shieldred scarcer than a normal mythic or whatever. But again, like I've never seen evidence of that. Like I've never seen evidence of that being possible on Arena. Or the other problem I have with this whole thinking is like I just don't think it's that easy to predict the good cards. Like it's very easy to be like, oh, Shieldred, there should be more of them printed, or it's so scarce. But how did Wizards know that Shieldred was going to be the banger when they were printing the set? Or like look at Ledger Shredder or Arclight Phoenix. Like these are cards that ended up being the best cards in their sets that were really slept on by the community and probably by Wizards. So Wizards wouldn't even know, like when they were printing the cards, to like make Ledger Shredder, scarcer, make Arclight Phoenix scarcer, make that one of the super rare ones. So I think like the logic of it kind of doesn't line up, because I just don't think WotC can predict what cards are going to be good. Like they didn't know that Felidare Guardian was going to be a combo piece when we printed it until it was out there. Like, so I just don't think it's that easy for WotC to know what cards are going to be good when they're making the set.
Yeah, I fully agree with that too. Like, yeah, like that. It's hard to predict that.
Anyway, that is our list of Magic Arena conspiracy theories. I think we did a pretty good job of debunking most of them. Curious what y'all think, though. If you're watching this, what do you think about these conspiracy theories? What do we miss? Are there any Arena conspiracy theories that you're actually a believer in and you just, you can't get away from? Definitely let us know in the comments. And I believe this brings us to the end of episode 476 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So no fish mail this week. If you got a question, send it in for next week. Hashtag it MTG Fishmail at MTG Goldfish on Twitter. Thanks for hanging out, Crim. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. Thanks to everyone for listening. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have an amazing week. And this is the crew signing out.